Have you ever wondered why a single glance of indifference can cut deeper than 1,000 words? Why the absence of acknowledgement feels heavier than any insult could? You offer your best, your patience, your tenderness, your time, yet somehow you vanish inside the very spaces where you ache to be seen. It's a slow kind of erasure, one you feel but can't quite name. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And maybe, just maybe, this is why respect remains something you chase, but never seem to catch, because the world is not ignoring you, it is mirroring you. It sees only what you allow it to see, a reflection dimmed by self-doubt, a presence diluted by self-forgetting. You wear the smile, you nod at the jokes, you forgive the absence of care, even when it gnaws at the edges of your soul. But beneath it all, a quiet truth waits for you, until you stand fully unshakably in who you are. You will be treated as you treat yourself, half visible, half valued. Today we won't offer you hollow slogans, no empty encouragements, no quick fixes for a wound that was never shallow. Today we walk into the heart of it. We confront the silent agreements you made against yourself. We unearth the forgotten promises you owe to your own soul, not to inspire you, but to awaken you. Because self-respect is not a luxury. It is not a prize others will one day bestow. It is the foundation, the first breath of a life that truly belongs to you. And maybe the life you are always meant to live begins the moment you refuse to disappear. You tell yourself that people are cruel, selfish, indifferent, and maybe sometimes they are. But the truth, the harder truth, is quieter and closer. Carl Jung taught us, the world outside is not chaos. It is an intricate mirror, silently reflecting what lies within. When you allow yourself to be interrupted, when you laugh off disrespect, when you shrink to make others comfortable, you are not just reacting, you are sending a signal, a silent permission, a hidden agreement. This is what I believe I deserve. It's not your fault that you learned this language of invisibility, but it is now your responsibility to unlearn it. Because every time you tolerate what wounds you, you reinforce the message to the world. Treat me like this. I will not resist. And so the cycle deepens, not because life is cruel, but because your unconscious mind is faithfully recreating what it knows. You can change cities, you can find new relationships, you can start fresh 1,000 times. But if the root, the buried, unexamined belief remains, the story will repeat itself, dressed in new faces, new places, new seasons. You do not attract what you dream of. You attract what your deepest self believes it is worthy of. This is not a curse. It is an invitation to see yourself clearly, to stand where you once knelt, to end the silent contracts you never knew you signed. Because when you begin to expect more from yourself, the world, slowly, stubbornly, begins to expect more from you too. And when the world mirrors back the way you have diminished yourself, it leaves a wound, a quiet hunger, a hope that maybe if you just try harder, they will finally see you. So you spend your life trying to be enough, the ideal friend, the flawless partner, the child who never disappoints even when the weight of perfection bends your spirit. And sometimes you receive approval, a smile, a compliment, a fleeting nod of acceptance, but it never lasts, because it was never rooted in who you truly are, only in the mask you learn to wear. And so you keep chasing it, the next praise, the next reassurance, the next sign that you are worthy. But here's the truth you fear to name. Those who live for approval are easy to manipulate, and people, often unconsciously, can sense when your self-worth is negotiable. When you live through the persona, when you mold yourself to fit every expectation, You lose something sacred. You become an echo, a hollow outline of who you were meant to be. A compliment lifts you high into the sky. A slight sends you crashing into despair. And in this exhausting cycle of rising and falling, your own center, your own knowing, is lost. The more you chase validation, the louder you confess without words, "I doubt my own worth." And the world, cold not because it hates you, but because it simply mirrors you, responds in kind. It treats you as something fleeting, because you treat yourself as something uncertain. But hear this: respect cannot be harvested from the outside. It must be grown quietly, stubbornly within. The moment you stop bargaining for worth with your obedience, the world will be forced to reckon with the truth of you. Not the performance, not the persona, but the undeniable presence you had hidden for too long. When you live for validation, when you wear the mask to be accepted, you lose the simplest, most powerful word you were ever meant to speak: no. You were taught that goodness means pleasing everyone, that love means disappearing quietly, that kindness means swallowing your own pain and calling it virtue. And so you learned to nod when you wanted to protest, to smile when you wanted to cry, to say yes, even when everything inside you screamed for a no. But understand this: self-respect is not born through endless surrender. It is carved carefully, painfully, through boundaries. And it begins with the first trembling, defiant act: saying no. No to being overburdened. No to silent disrespect. No to relationships that demand you shrink to be loved. And yes, guilt will come. It will rise from the oldest parts of you, whispering that you are selfish, unkind, cold. Yes, some will accuse you. They will feel entitled to the version of you that never protested, the version you are now burying forever. But hear this: each no you speak becomes a brick in the sacred fortress of your dignity. Every time you refuse what dishonors you, you lay another stone in the foundation of a self that cannot be shaken. Saying no is not cruelty. It is not rejection. It is not an act of war. It is an act of remembrance. A remembering that you were never meant to be erased to make others comfortable. And it is how the world, startled at first but ultimately respectful, finally begins to learn. Here stands a person who will not disappear. The first no will be the hardest. It may tremble on your lips, it may ache in your chest, but each no that honors your truth is a yes to something far greater, a yes to yourself. And once you begin, a different kind of life starts breathing inside you. One where your voice is no longer a prisoner, one where your presence demands no permission. The world adjusts when you do, but the first move must always come from within. And yet, even when you find the courage to say no, you may still feel a hand pulling you back. A voice whispering that it's better, safer to stay silent. Why is it so hard to stand firm in your own life? Because the parts of you meant to protect you, your fire, your voice, your healthy anger, were buried long ago. As a child, when you were scolded for speaking out, punished for daring to resist, ignored for needing too much, you learned a devastating lesson. To be loved, I must be small. And so, little by little, you carved yourself into something acceptable, polite, pleasant, predictable. You built the persona, the mask, and you buried everything wild, fierce, and true in the shadow. But what is buried does not die. It waits, and from that darkness it governs you still. Every time you want to roar but swallow your voice, every time you want to scream but force a smile, you are not just betraying yourself, you are betraying the truest, fiercest parts of your nature. The persona pleases, it bows, it adapts, but the shadow suffocates under the weight of all you denied. And the soul withers in the silence, You are not weak because you struggle. You are not broken because you fear confrontation. You are carrying a lifetime of silent agreements. Agreements that said, I must not take up too much space. I must not cause discomfort. I must disappear to survive. But here's the truth few dare to tell you. You were never meant to survive that way. You were meant to live until you reclaim what you abandoned. Your fire, your anger, your undeniable no. You will continue to live half alive, tolerating what you were born to transform. The world does not change by your silence. It changes by your presence. A presence that no longer asks permission to exist. The parts of yourself you fear the most, your anger, your boundaries, your boldness, were never your enemies. They were your guardians, your inner protectors. The vital organs of a spirit built for wholeness, not obedience. You were taught to see them as flaws, as dangers to your acceptance, as reasons you would not be loved. But Carl Jung showed us the deeper truth. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Integration is not about becoming harsh. It is not about trading kindness for cruelty. It is about becoming real, becoming whole. It is about standing in the fullness of yourself, light and shadow alike, without apology. When you reclaim the parts you buried, something irreversible begins to happen inside you. The fear of displeasing fades. The need for permission dissolves. The aching hunger for validation evaporates. And in its place, a new kind of dignity rises. Quiet, unwavering, undeniable. You no longer ask for respect. You embody it. The world, slow to notice at first, begins to shift around you. People who once crossed your boundaries hesitate. Situations that once drained you begin to fall away. Relationships that once thrived on your silence lose their grip, because energy cannot lie. And when you stand in the full, integrated truth of who you are, the world has no choice but to respond in kind. You are no longer a half-lit reflection of someone else's expectations. You are the full flame, steady, silent, sovereign, and that changes everything. Integration is the awakening, but practice is how you anchor it into your bones. Building self-respect is not a feeling you wait for. It is a daily choice you make, even when it trembles inside you. Here are 5 tools, simple but profound, to begin that rebuilding today. First, use discomfort as a compass. Every time you feel that quiet tightening in your chest, that subtle ache in your gut, stop. Listen. Discomfort is not your enemy. It is your soul whispering, something here betrays me. Ask yourself, if I truly respected myself, what would I do right now? And then, do it, without apology, without asking permission, without shrinking to make anyone more comfortable. Your discomfort is not a weakness. It is a compass, pointing you back to yourself. Second, stop justifying your boundaries. When you say no, mean it. Do not wrap it in excuses. Do not bury it under long, apologetic explanations. No is a complete sentence, soft, firm, final. When you justify your boundaries too much, you teach others that your no is negotiable, that your truth is fragile. It isn't. Stand in it, even when your voice shakes, even when silence feels safer, because every unapologetic no builds the muscles of self-respect you were never taught to grow. Third, prioritize yourself in your own life. Look at your days, your calendar, your promises. Where are you? Are you even there? If not, you are teaching yourself that you are optional. Self-respect demands visibility, even to yourself. Block time for yourself not as a luxury, but as an act of survival. Sacred, non-negotiable, immovable. When you place yourself back at the center of your own life, the world will feel the shift, even before you say a word. Fourth, replace reaction with conscious response. When someone disrespects you, the temptation is to either explode or collapse. Neither serves you. Both betray your center. Pause, breathe, return to yourself before you return to the world. And then with calm, unwavering clarity, say, "This is not acceptable to me." No anger, no apologies, just truth, standing still. Because those who assert themselves with quiet strength teach the world how they are meant to be treated. Fifth, choose environments that reflect your worth. Your surroundings are not neutral. They are mirrors, echoes of what you believe you deserve. Look around you, the friendships, the workplaces, the relationships. Do they recognize your value, or do they only reach for you when they are hungry? Self-respect sometimes means walking away, even when your heart wants to stay. Stay close to those who see you, even in your silence, even in your no, and release, quietly without fanfare, those who only value the pieces of you that serve them. Every small act of self-respect you plant today grows into a future where invisibility is no longer your fate. You are not rebuilding yourself in grand, dramatic moments. You are rebuilding yourself in 1,000 quiet choices, each one a whisper to the universe. I am no longer available for my own erasure. And the universe always listens. Even after the mask is dropped, even after the boundaries are drawn, one final fear still lingers in the silence. The fear of standing alone. It is this fear, ancient, heavy, unspoken, that binds you to what no longer nourishes you. The desperate need for belonging, the terror of solitude, the fear that without them, without their attention, their approval, their presence, you will vanish into nothingness. But here, quietly waiting at the very end of your old patterns, is the final secret. Until you can bear the full weight of your own company, until you can sit in your own gaze without flinching, you will always be vulnerable to those who offer you crumbs and call it love. Alone is not empty. Alone is not failure. Alone is whole. Alone is the sacred space where your voice grows loud enough to hear, where your needs, your dreams, your forgotten fire can finally breathe without permission. When you no longer fear the echo of your own footsteps, you no longer fear the absence of anyone else. And from that fullness, not from hunger, not from longing, you will finally be able to choose love freely. Not to complete you, not to save you, but simply to share the abundance you already carry inside. Because true connection can only be built between two souls who are already standing whole. Everything else is dependency dressed as affection. There will come a moment, perhaps today, perhaps in the quiet hours when no one is watching, when you finally see it with painful clarity. The world was never blind to you. It was following your lead. It mirrored the way you silenced your voice, the way you softened your needs into whispers, the way you forgave without being asked, shrinking yourself smaller and smaller, hoping to be chosen. But if you want the world to recognize your worth, you must first recognize it yourself. The mirror does not change when you beg it to. It changes only when you change what stands before it. Self-respect begins quietly, not in grand declarations, but in invisible, sacred choices no one else can see. A quiet no, a steady boundary, a refusal to abandon yourself even when loneliness tempts you. And once self-respect takes root inside you, it blooms outward without permission, without bargaining, without doubt. Respect is not something you wait to be granted. It is something you realize, something you become. If this awakening stirred something deep within you, comment below. I choose to respect myself. Let it be your first public act of reclaiming your own life. Thank you for watching Echoes of Thought. If this resonated with you, don't stop here. Subscribe, explore more of our content. See you in the next video.